We've discussed the latest developments, we've discussed the root cause. Let's also now talk about the fallout of the India-Canada row. How will it impact ordinary people, Indians who migrated there and put down their roots, or people who are there for work or study or travel? How will this latest escalation impact their lives? Let's start with the people of Indian origin. These are people who gave up their Indian citizenship or their descendants. So they are Canadian citizens with roots in India. Canada is home to more than 1.8 million of them. They make up about 4% of the country's population, people of Indian origin, 4% of the population. Canada beats both the UK and Australia in terms of hosting people of Indian origin. Then there are the NRIs, non-resident Indians, people who are still Indian citizens but who live in Canada, mostly for work or study. There are more than 1 million NRIs in Canada, again more than the UK and Australia. So combined, you have more than 2.8 million people who could be affected by the India-Canada row. And how could they be affected? Let's start with the visas. Last September, India suspended visa services for Canadian nationals. Canadian citizens could not apply for Indian visas, even from Indian diplomatic missions in third countries. This hit the Indian diaspora the hardest. People with Overseas Citizen of India or OCI cards were not affected. Neither were those with valid long-term visas. But there were some people of Indian descent who applied for visas last September and they were denied visa services. They had to wait for a few months and try again, and things were arguably worse for Indian students. Last October, Canada recalled its diplomats from India. They were away for a few months, so visa issuance slowed to a crawl. Canada did not suspend visa services outright, but because there were no diplomats at the embassy, at the High Commission here or the other missions, it was almost a de facto suspension. Between October and December 2023, student visas issued to Indians fell by 42%. Thousands of students were rejected as well, meaning that they ended up having to waste an entire semester. And this was bad for both countries. You see, Indian students were forced to waste their time, but Canada also lost on a lot of money. Indians make up the bulk of overseas students in Canada, and they have done for years now. They also pay international student fees, meaning they contribute billions. In 2021, Indian students contributed almost $5 billion to the Canadian economy. That's about a quarter of what Canada earned from all international students. So fewer Indian students is bad for the Canadian economy. Despite this, Canada slowed down the issuance of student visas last year, so the same thing could happen again. And these are the risks on the visa front. But the fallout of this row will not be limited to just travel. Let's look at the broader long-term impact. Who are the Indians in Canada? A large proportion are Sikh people, almost 770,000 by one estimate. This includes both ordinary Sikh people and the Khalistanis. The rest of the diaspora comes from other regions of India, from other communities. So what happens when Justin Trudeau panders to the Khalistani separatists? When he chooses to back the Khalistanis for their votes, what happens then? Obviously, they get emboldened and they start attacking the others. And we've seen this play out too. Khalistanis have been attacking Hindu temples in Canada, and that too quite regularly. They keep vandalizing Hindu places of worship, and there hasn't been any response by Ottawa. How will this impact the long-term safety and security of Hindus in Canada? How will this impact communal harmony? Getting votes is a short-term scheme. But what Trudeau is doing is harming social cohesion, possibly for generations to come.
Firstpost decodes the U.S. election. Explains how America chooses its president. Your primer on the race to the White House. Everything you need to know about how America votes and its global implications. U.S. Election Explained. Every Monday and Thursday only on Firstpost.